time, their argument is, just wait and see. Do nothing in reaction to the large change, right? That was the argument. Basically, they want companies to wait for a long time before they do something. We told you that was very, very dangerous because companies need to react quickly to cut back their losses if a crisis does in fact happen. So their point-blank assertion that high-frequency trading only happens in relation to meaningless and very small short-term changes was just completely untrue. And the essential question we asked them, if something really bad happens quickly and that's reflected in the share price, why should you not be able to react fast? You get no real response. The response was to try and say that, well, the reason why only big companies invest very large amounts in response to small changes is because if it's a very small change, you need to invest a lot in order to make a margin. Firstly, that is just a crazy characterization. If you are a big company with lots of money, Imran really believes that big companies make money by investing huge amounts of money into changes which happen about 2,000 times every single day to thousands of companies. He believes that's how companies make money, right? If you're a company, what are you interested in? You're interested in the long-term effects of what's going to happen to a certain company. You're interested in the cumulative effect of what's going to happen. You want to devote your analyst time to meaningful changes in the market if we buy their own characterization that these very small changes are often not meaningful, right? So on the very prima facie basis, it's just unlikely that big companies spend lots of the time just fanatically trying to get lots of money in response to very, very small changes in the value of a company. That simply does not hold to logic at all. What then is the importance of high-frequency trading? It's important to these big companies, most importantly, in reacting to sudden shocks in the market. They said this is bad because it creates panic. No, this shock works both ways, right? Either it is a shock to the company and the investor, or it is a shock to a certain country. What we tell you is that people ought to have the ability to choose to mitigate the shock to themselves. So, if a country does a silly policy and everyone withdraws their money, we admit that's a shock to the country. It has also prevented a shock to all the people who had a stake in that country. The shock is symmetrical. Either it's a shock to all the company or the country, or everyone who invested in the company or the country. They needed to give us some kind of weighing up as to why the priorities of the country are more important than all of these investors. They never did that. In fact, what we suggested to you that is in the current paradigm with a certain amount of regulation, right? What happens is that the way high-frequency trading happens is that it happens in a regulatory manner, in which to cancel out very small meaningless fluctuations. Because even if many companies, small businesses, do react countercyclically, right, to certain changes in the market, that eventually cancels out. Those are not meaningful signals. Also, that was not disputed. What then did they tell us? They said, look, companies will not want to public list because they feel that they don't have control over what's going to happen to them. That's just a bit funny, right? I mean, presumably some companies will want to invest because they know they will benefit from public listing. Some won't because they want. Some won't because they are not going to benefit, right? On the balance of harms, they never showed us why is it that these companies who are particularly risk-averse to listing themselves is an actual harm, right? Presumably, having the ability to public list actually brings more companies out because those companies which would never have entered the market, would never have formed in the first place, now can form because of the fact that public listing brings with it the benefit that you can react to a certain short-term change. We also did no weighing up on that particular point. What did we tell you then? We told you that it's extremely important for small businesses or small trusts who are very risk-averse, who are unable to basically hedge all their interests, to be able to trade rapidly to mitigate against certain harms. Because they never know of the analysis either, that even very big things have very small beginnings. And reacting to them quickly is also a net good. Lucas told you why this particularly helps people who are poor, who do not have the kind of investments tied up in companies that have the capacity to make these sorts of long-term decisions. What have I shown you, right? They've given us no legitimate balance, we've shown you lots of benefits over the cracks.
I thank the Honorable reply for his speech. Now I'd like to invite the guard reply to end this debate from the House. Here you go.
That is too tall, man. Too tall.
See, we live in a world today where the side opposition refuses to acknowledge that speculation exists. They refuse to acknowledge that, in fact, banks like Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch make huge amounts of money profiting purely on speculation on share price, separated and divorced from the fundamentals of economic reality. This the core of our case from the beginning, explain to you why it's ultimately distorts price signals, distorts markets. Something they completely refuse to acknowledge, and we refuse to deal with on our side. Their model seems to believe and this model seems to assert and believe that somehow investment today takes place in a world where you have small companies, you have maids and very poor people somehow investing in these shares who can react very quickly to sudden events, and big companies like Goldman Sachs, they essentially play the cello or something, right? Have no idea what their conception of high frequency trading is, and this assertion that all it involves is being able to sell your shares very fast, right? Ultimately, we've proven to you why under our model is a far more accurate description of the realities in investment banking today, where ultimately, right, how companies now can make money is simply through the selling of large volumes of shares in order to take advantage of small price differentials. And more importantly, how because of that, small price differentials become amplified to become larger price differentials, cause crises and panics. Because what will originate small falls in share price, because you sell tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of shares, become huge falls in the share price that create panics, that distort market signals, and don't allow markets to function properly. They've completely failed to engage us on our grounds. But what we have done today is we have managed to prove why, or even on their grounds, the whole idea that somehow shares are just about being able to sell things frequently, even their model, under their model, is still harmful to market, harmful to society. You're going to analyze this on two levels. First of all, I'm going to talk about the investors themselves and why ultimately even these people are undermined by the ability to do so. And secondly, the countries, the companies who are affected by high frequency trading under their false characterization. Right? First of all, they tell us about investors. They say that ultimately it helps maids and poor companies make money and protect themselves, right? On the first level, they never explain to us how ultimately these people who don't have access to computers 24/7, who don't have access to expertise, who don't have the financial wizardry that exists in Wall Street, who don't have people who graduate from maybe Cambridge, right, are people who are able to respond so effectively and quickly to price signals of the stock markets. They never explain to us why ultimately the billions that Goldman Sachs has is not something that will overwhelm these people's abilities to manage the stock market. All things they just asserted and attempted to get away with because they claim they are Cambridge A, right? We don't allow the second level, they tell us that ultimately regulation allows investors to protect themselves, and therefore that's okay. We put forth to you that ultimately in the first level, because of the regulatory capture that occurs in this particular industry, because financial industry is so much power, and because very few people can understand. In fact, Kian admitted that only the financial companies or people in China can understand the 2,000 pages of Dodd-Frank. Right? Ultimately, regulation cannot protect small investors who are ultimately undermined by the actions of these big companies in selling their shares quickly and causing disproportionate effects, right? And purely in a way to make more money for themselves without defending the interests of the many, without defending the interests of society at large. The next question they talk about is the country's compete itself. And their only argument here was to say Thailand deserved it, right? They pegged their currency too high, so it's okay for us to cause the currency to collapse. We put forth to you that ultimately when you allow when companies sell these stocks in such high frequencies, high volumes, right? It's not so simple about Lucas tried to characterize small marginal fluctuations. That in fact, because somehow you can react so quickly, a lot of people sell and correct the whole time, which was market over corrections. And they attempt to assert to us that the deep recession that Thailand was forced into as a result of financial crisis, result of the action of George Soros, resulted in huge amounts of people plunged into poverty, which resulted in people from Malaysia to Singapore, innocent people who were not complicit in the actual Thai government at all, suffering from the financial crisis resulted from the selfish actions of investors, is somehow okay. Where we fundamentally oppose this. We think that high frequency trading, whether under our model or our characterization, harms the market, harms investors, harms countries and companies who are most severely impacted by this action. Very, very proud to propose and win this debate.
Thank you.